Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Matt Rhule, the Nebraska Cornhuskers go out and land, to me, what's one of the more fascinating football players in the transfer portal in former Oklahoma. I'm just going to call him defensive player, Dasan McCullough. And what makes this kid so fascinating is, one, the physical traits are special with this kid. And I think, secondly, he's extremely versatile. He started his career as a true freshman at Indiana, coming off the edge, kind of used as an outside linebacker, rushing the passer off the edge, looked really good there. And then transferred to Oklahoma. They moved him to that nickel role where I don't think it was a great fit. And then he struggled with injuries. And then in 2024, moved to that weak side linebacker spot, off ball backer. I think the conversation of where you want to start with Dasan McCullough is you got to find a position that you think fits his traits best. And why I love the kind of marriage between him and this Nebraska program is Matt Rhule knows how to do this. I mean, you look at the track record of Matt Rhule as a football coach, he's taken a lot of just good athletes and found the best spots for them to make an impact on the football field. That's going to be the key with Dasan McCullough. And I personally look at him and say he's got to be somewhere in the front seven. He played that nickel role in 2023 with Oklahoma and just it seemed a little bit too big. And it's just, I think more importantly, it's just not the place where you can maximize a kid like this. You want him around the line of scrimmage. You want him involved in the front seven around the football. That's where I think he fits best. Whether it's as an outside linebacker, whether it's just an off ball linebacker, that's kind of where I would like to see Dasan McCullough play for Nebraska. But a lot of different ways you can use this kid in the front seven. And at the end of the day, Nebraska, they needed front seven defenders, whether it's guys that are going to be on the line of scrimmage, whether it's at the off ball linebacker position, you're getting one in Dasan McCullough. And I would think that Matt Rhule and this coaching staff have a really good idea of where Dasan McCullough can come in and make the highest impact going into 2025. If you can find the right position and put this kid in a spot where he can be impactful, I think the sky's the limit for him. Want to get into a little bit more of where he situates in this Nebraska defense. Talk about what Nebraska has done in the transfer portal. I do like it. It's been kind of under the radar, but I think Nebraska's grabbing a transfer portal class that to me makes a lot of sense. Before we get into it, as always, just want to say thank you to you guys and to the Nebraska fans, whether we're talking the recruiting trail, whether we're talking the transfer portal, on the football field in 2024. Y'all continue to show a ton of love to the boys. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into this on. I think where you want to start is, he's extremely long, 6'5", 235. And that's kind of where you look at him and say, coming off the edge, to me, has been his best position so far. You go back to him as a true freshman at Indiana, this kid was a menace, rushing the flat passer off the edge. There's just not a lot of tackles that can deal with the length and the burst that Dasan McCullough can bring. And he's a guy that can operate in space. He can drop back in zone coverage, and you feel even better about it now that he has some experience playing that nickel role. I look at him coming into Nebraska and say, he can be an off-ball linebacker that can sift through traffic and go find the ball carrier and go sideline to sideline because he's a phenomenal athlete for the size. But he also can be a guy that if you want to, on third and long, put him over a tackle rushing off the edge, he can do that too. He's the ultimate, in my opinion, front seven utility chess piece. Again, I think the goal is, can we find a position for him and use him and kind of get the best out of him, so to speak. I think the one struggle Dasan McCullough has had during his career time at Oklahoma was they were kind of monkeying around with all sorts of different positions with this kid. He went from being an outside linebacker rushing off the edge to playing a little bit more of that nickelback role. And then in 2024, kind of went to that weak side linebacker, off-ball linebacker spot. They've just never really found a position, said, all right, learn this position, know how to thrive in it. That's kind of been the struggle with him, along with a few injuries that have been keeping him off the field. If you can keep him healthy, if you can find the position that you think he can best make an impact for this Nebraska defense, I think this kid can be a difference maker for Nebraska in the front seven. Now you take a look at what Nebraska's done in the 2025 transfer portal class. There, to me, is a lot to like, right? You've grabbed a couple of, not flashy, but depth pieces on the defensive line and Jalen George and Gabe Moore, guys that can play on the inside, guys that probably can play on the outside as well. And Isaiah Hunter's probably my favorite addition, just a big body that's electric with the football in his hands, can work vertically down the field, but also can create some separation. Marcos Davila, a guy that I really liked at the quarterback spot coming out of high school, kind of replacing, a little bit of what Danny Kalen brought to the Nebraska's room. I think this is a guy that you can stash away, and he's clearly on board with it, right? He wouldn't be transferring to Nebraska if he wasn't clearly on board with a little bit more of that developmental role. Sit behind Dylan for a couple of years and then potentially be ready to be the guy. But at 6'3", 230, he's got a really, really big arm. He's a solid athlete, was really productive at the high school ranks. And then Justin Rett, former Georgia safety that was from Bishop Gorman, was kind of projected to be a cornerback, moved to that safety position. What I love about Justin Rett is because he was a cornerback in high school, you're getting a safety that can operate a little bit better in man coverage, which was something Nebraska's secondary, specifically a guy like maybe Isaac Gifford, kind of struggled with. And so I look at Nebraska and say, look, it's not the flashes. I mean, you made a big splash early, Willis, with Williams-Nwaneri. But outside of that, it's not a ton of flash, but it's a ton of players that kind of fit what Nebraska needed in the transfer portal. And you look at a guy in Dasan McCullough and say that the upside here is super intriguing if you can get him in the right position consistently. We'll see what else Nebraska has up their sleeve. I'm looking at that offensive lineman from Washington State. I was buzzing a little bit of his film a couple of days ago. Michigan's going after him too. That would probably be the cherry on top for this transfer portal class for Nebraska. We'll cut it there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.